Jessica Plotz. Did I pronounce you right? Plouts. I found her on TripAdvisor from the Netherlands last night. Jessica is the first travel editor for Mashable. She's worked in the travel online industry as a journalist for years from California originally.
Thank you, everyone. I think with the timing, we'll probably have people in and out, but I really hope to have a good conversation about trends, which is kind of an overused word, but I would like to do more than just the keywords. So to help me do that, we have some great panelists with experience in destinations and planning. Alex Herman, who is Director Americas at Switzerland Tourism. Lindsay Young, who is the Digital Marketing Manager at Urban Adventures. And Eric Rubant, who is President at Sire Travel. So to get started, I think if everybody could just sort of give a 30-second intro of what you do and where you've been and what your focus is. So Alex.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jessica. Welcome, everyone. It's very nice of you to be here with us on this wonderful day, which is pretty much an average summer day in Switzerland right now here. This is like Switzerland in the summer, not August here or July, but this is how summer in Switzerland is basically throughout the summer season. So my name is Alex Herman. I'm the director for the Americas for Switzerland Tourism. So we promote Switzerland as a travel and vacation and convention destination here in the US, in Canada, and in Brazil. I've been in this country for more than 10 years, and I have a background in technology. I was with IBM for 8 or almost 9 years, so I've seen both worlds, technology and travel, and I'm really excited to be part of this panel here. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lindsay Young. I am with Urban Adventures, and we are a global day tour company. We're operating right now, I think, in about 109 cities around the world. It changes daily, so I always sound like I don't know what I'm talking about, but it actually changes daily. We're operating about 378 tours right now, and it's really about local experiences, kind of really getting under the skin of a city, really cool cultural engagement with local communities, local businesses, no more than 12 people on a tour, just really fun stuff, like not your average sightseeing tour. So you're not really gonna see Times Square, or if you do, you're gonna see it like a local. You're not gonna see it from a bus. So we do beer tours, kayaking tours, food tours, wine, drink, basically everything you can imagine. So I'm responsible for the global marketing team. I'm based in Toronto, yeah, I'm just really excited to be here. My background is tourism, so I've been with the company for 4 years, and I've done my degrees in tourism and just do what I love. It's good.
My name is Eric Rubant. I'm the owner and operator of Sire Travel, a division of Zell. I've been in travel my entire adult life, and about 3 years ago, I started my own company. And I'm a concierge business and leisure travel specialist, and I have clients all over the world, in New York, Abu Dhabi, Washington, everywhere. And I present myself as an expert and an ally for my clients. So we just don't sell you a ticket and send you on your way, but we're there for you every step of the way.
Great, thank you. So to get us started, I really wanted each panelist to answer in 3 tweets or less, why do trends matter in the travel industry?
You should say Periscope now, because Twitter is so, 2000s, I guess. So
in a 15-second Periscope.
Thank you. Why do trends matter in travel? I think number one, it's the general trends that influence travel as they travel everything else. So the way people inform themselves about destinations, about potential places to travel to, the way they plan their trips, the way they book, the way they travel, the way they share their experiences and all of that. Of course, technology is an important part of that, other societal travel. So I guess on one hand, you can't really look at just travel, and you have to look at the overall trends, how people behave, how people inform themselves, etc., etc., etc. But of course, then we see some specific trends in travel, and from our perspective as a destination marketing organization, we see some really very specific travel trends that have been increasing dramatically in Europe and particularly in Switzerland. It's river cruising, which is probably the trend, has been the trend for quite some time, but it's amazing that it's increasing even more. And if you read the trade magazines, there's a christening of several ships every day, basically, in river cruising, and now more and more you find more specialization and customization of all these river cruises and also ocean cruises, basically. Then it's these trends that have been around for quite some time, like authenticity, and everybody understands the different thing. I guess we talk about it a little bit later also, what authenticity can mean, and travel like a local, or travel with a local, or be a local, or all of these things. But I think basically it's experiential. It's about experiences, and the way people's ideas of what an experience is change. The way they want to travel changes, and that's what we see the most, and that has an impact then on what kind of travel gets the most traction and what's the effect. For Switzerland, just to wrap this up, one of the huge trends we've seen, particularly in our destination, is the combination of luxury, and I'm talking 4 or 5 star, not just high-end, but really the upper end of the spectrum, and the combination with active travel. And you mentioned a little bit about that, and I think you were specialized in this area, Eric. So the combination of people who want to go out there and hike and have local experiences and active experiences and bike and explore a destination, but at the same time they want to stay in the comfort of a 4 or 5 star hotel. They want the spa. They want the nice 5 star or 3 star Michelin chef dinner at night, etc. That's a huge trend that we see, particularly in our destination, this combination. You don't have the adventure traveler and the luxury traveler, you actually have a huge segment that combines them both.
I think when it comes to travel trends, they are so significant because right now the way that we share and consume our travel experiences is a lot on social media. And so ultimately everybody sees what you do, they see where you go, they see where you're eating, and then they just want to do the exact same thing. So it just manifests itself as a trend. And I think that's kind of the biggest thing that I've just noticed in terms of, what just my interest in the industry, and then what we do as a business. A lot of it's driven by social media, because it's just that, like, I see you're doing that, I want to do the exact same thing. I want to go there, I want to eat that. It's pretty simple, I think, right now.
Hashtag travel trends, or I don't know, hashtag trends. I think everybody likes bright, new, shiny objects. I mean, we all do. We get a new phone every 2 years or less, and we all want what's new. We all want to one-up our friends on Facebook and have a better Instagram photo. So I think, as long as there's travel conventions and shows, there's always going to be travel trends and something new and exciting. And everyone travels. I mean, in this day and age, there's no one that doesn't travel. It's very rare. And everybody wants to do something new and exciting and something off the beaten track sometimes. So I think that's what travel trends are, trying to keep up with trends, trying to set new trends, hopefully, if you're lucky enough, or just trying to get out there and maybe do something that your neighbor didn't do or your coworker didn't do in the next cubicle.
Very good. So there's a couple words that always get repeated, and I'd say they're authentic, local, experiential. Am I missing any? Those are like the current words. They keep getting repeated, but it feels like one thing that everyone wants to do is to visit a place and have the enjoyment of a tourist, but see everything as locals do. So how can destinations and how can people planning travel achieve that?
May I start?
Yeah.
I think if you're really honest to yourself and you spend 3 days in a city, you can't experience the city like a local. If you're in a city or in a place for 3 days, you're a tourist, you're a traveler. If you're there for 3 months, it might be different. So we shouldn't kid ourselves and do everything like a local. What you can do is, of course, travel with a local and try to get the local perspective on a certain place. So that might be one approach. we have started to work with the concept of authenticity, and our slogan has been "Get Natural" for I think about 13 or 14 years. We have agencies calling us all the time. You should maybe change your marketing. I go, no, we stay with "Get Natural" because that's us, and it has worked well. And authenticity has been around for quite some time. What we sometimes say a little, to get the discussion going is, what is authenticity? It means that nothing is created for tourists. So I can say in Switzerland, there's no tourist attractions. Nothing is there that has been built or done or made just for tourists. Of course, for local travelers, for weekenders, for day trippers and things like that. But I think that's maybe a little bit of a radical explanation of what authenticity is. It's basically not made for tourists. How this results in experiences for people is very, very interesting, and I think it's one of the most innovative parts in the industry right now. What you can see, how, for example, farms open up their doors, and you can't sleep there, in the hay or something, but you can also share a meal with them and have this local farm experience for a few days. In the cities, this happened already quite some time ago. So there's all kinds of local experiences, but you don't even have to look that far. Just by taking a train somewhere instead of renting a car can be a much more local experience. So you don't even have to, buy special services or work with special providers. You can just board the next train, or instead of a taxi, use the bus or the tram in a city or something, and you already have a local experience right there, an authentic experience right there.
I beg to differ a little.
Fight.
I definitely, I like what you say about, kind of getting to know, being with a local, and then you get a local experience by hanging out with a local. But I actually think you can get a local experience in a day, in 2 days. I don't think, it takes 3 months. I mean, I'm from Toronto. I've lived there almost my whole life. I'm in a new neighborhood that I've been there for about 2 years now. And sometimes I still don't feel like I belong in that neighborhood, So it's like, it depends on how you define it, but I don't think, saying, oh, you have to live here in order to actually feel like a local. I don't necessarily agree, but I think it comes down to being open-minded and seeking out the people that can help you see the city, how people live it, because, that's really how you understand the city. Toronto's actually an interesting example. It's not the best place to visit as a tourist. It's, unlike Switzerland, quite manufactured for the tourist experience. You've got the CN Tower, you've got this obnoxious aquarium. Toronto's on Lake Ontario. You grew up not wanting to go in the lake. To have an aquarium in the city just doesn't quite make sense. But the tourist experience is very, very, very different from the local experience. So, you have to actually actively seek that out, because sometimes people come to the city and they're like, this place sucks. Like, they don't understand why people live there. You actually go and you find locals, like you say, and then you get it. You're like, oh, this place is awesome. It's kind of nice in a way because we kind of keep it to ourselves. But, that's what people are really seeking right now. They want to eat. They want to eat like a local. They don't want to eat at TGI Fridays. They want to eat at this tiny little hole in the wall that serves these itty-bitty kimchi tacos. But that's what everybody else is eating. And I don't know, I think it's a really cool focus, because it really gets you to understand the place. And places where you are experiencing manufactured, inauthentic stuff, you're not getting it, right? You're just not understanding it. But I think you can get it in an hour, 2 hours. You just have to know the right people, like us.
I've never had a client ask to stay in a barn in hay, so if I get that request, I'm going to call you right away. I don't know. I kind of have a joke. There's certain words that are way overused. Like, how many times do we see the word craft and artisanal? Like, I'm sick of craft and artisanal. Like, they're just overused, boring marketing words that have no meaning anymore. I think when it comes to, travel trends, to go back to that, or anything else, I think everybody wants to feel special. Everybody wants to have some sort of wow factor, and that's different for everybody depending on how you travel. I mean, we all travel a lot. We all get to a hotel. You want a really easy, experience when you check in. You want to get to your room and you want to, like, oh, this is great. You have a note from the general manager, a bottle of champagne waiting for you, even if it's just a bag of M&Ms. Everybody wants to feel special. And everybody wants to get out of their comfort zone and do something else and forget about their day-to-day. And I think that's sort of what I bring to my clients as well when it comes to travel, trying to give them that sort of experience, that sort of wow factor, even if it's just very, very small. And then trying to work with local people wherever I can to find the right fit for them. And I hope I get a request on Monday for sleeping in hay, because I will know exactly who to call. So.
People love it. You can then have a spa experience in a milk. In a bathtub full of milk, and it's amazing.
I can't wait.
I can tell you more about it afterwards.
So, Eric, you mentioned hotels, which I think would be a good jumping off point for discussing hotels, because Airbnb and VRBO and all of these have had a lot of success, possibly because people want to live like a local and therefore not be at a hotel. So, for destinations, maybe if the panelists could talk about, do travelers really just want to stay in a normal house now? And if they do, then what can hotels do to give them the experience that they're looking for?
I will start. I cater to a more sort of business clientele and a higher end clientele. I don't like making my bed during the week, so if I go on vacation, I certainly don't want to make my own bed. So I'm not a personal fan of apartment rentals. But that's a real value proposition for many people. A lot of people, if they're coming to New York, they don't want to stay in Manhattan. Maybe they want to stay in Queens or Brooklyn and take the train like a local. I grew up in Jackson Heights, so I'm fine not taking the 7 train. But still, I think that's what people may want. And if you can have a family of 4 stay in an apartment for $85 a night, that's significantly cheaper than coming into a hotel. A lot of people now have dietary restrictions too, or they like to cook their own meals. They like to have local ingredients. So I think, staying in apartments or Airbnbs, that's a great thing to do, or extended stay hotels that have a kitchen where you could go to the Union Square Farmers Market, come back, cook your own dinner, things like that. It really just depends on what you want. And I think people do different types of trips and different types of vacations. So maybe if you do 2 vacations a year, maybe one is a little bit more glamorous and luxurious than the other. So it just depends on your mood, your budget, what you want to do, and trying to figure out the perfect trip for yourself.
Yeah. I think if hotels can kind of personalize the experience a bit more, rather than just being this gigantic 42-story hotel where they don't know who you are and it's just kind of a generic experience, that's maybe not as appealing. Sometimes I like to stay in an apartment, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just want to be in a hotel because it's just comfortable, and you're right, your bed gets made every day, and exactly, and sometimes you don't know what you're going to get with the apartment, and that does happen with hotels, but it's just, I don't know, it depends on who I'm kind of with and what I'm doing, and but just sometimes you just want a really nice king-size bed that you can just lie in and relax, and you don't always get that in an apartment. So I think it depends. But if hotels do want to kind of give that kind of feeling, it's, I think, the boutique hotels that are really nailing it, and the ones that understand what we actually want when we travel. There's a really cool little one in London that I love, and it's super small, it's super basic. They've got free Wi-Fi, and it's fast, but they don't have, you don't need a hotel phone anymore. So why are you paying, quote unquote, for a room that has a phone in it? You don't need it. You want something that has a great little espresso machine in the morning, a TV, and that's kind of it. I think if hotels can figure out what we actually want, and can get away from the frills, but still cater to that experience and be in places where we want to, be not Times Square, I think they can kind of start to compete, because Airbnb isn't for everybody. And I think if the hotels do have a bit of a leg up in some ways, and if they can tap into it in the right way, I think they definitely still have a life. They're not going anywhere.
I pretty much agree with both of you, especially Eric also. I mean, Airbnb is here and it's here to stay. Every trend has a counter trend. It's especially interesting. If you're the first one on the counter trend, you're also in a good position. If I were a hotel owner, I would attack Airbnb on 3 things. Number 1, no fire escape. Number 2, no room service. Number 3, bed bugs. So see all the risks and so on. So when we talk about hotels, we should understand that in many parts of the world, much more in Europe and Asia than here, most of the hotels are small, family-owned operations where you have an owner or a general manager who's a host who welcomes you, almost like in an apartment basically. Just instead of an apartment, you have 30, 40 rooms or so, and you eat the local food and you drink the local wine and you have the real local experience. So if you compare Airbnb with these kinds of hotels, I think there's, for people who really want the local experience, they're much better off with going to some of these hotels, and you could call them boutique hotels, but it's also just basically the traditional model of how hotels have worked in big parts of the world. Of course, if you compare them with the major international brands and these, hotels that look the same everywhere, that's a little bit of a different story. And I guess there, I can understand people who prefer a more local Airbnb experience. So I guess for these smaller family-owned hotels, there's an amazing opportunity to actually take advantage of this trend.
I know for me too, it's nice to work with hotels that aren't owned by large corporations. Actually, hotels owned by hoteliers, people that love hospitality, that love to serve people. Those are the experiences you want. There's nothing wrong with the large chains. There's really enough business and enough rooms for everybody, but not having that big corporate sponsor, the big corporate feeling, just having, hotels, hospitality is a very respectable profession and people are really good at it. So it's nice to experience that.
Great. So I wanted to switch over to tech a bit, really with kind of a two-part question. First is about millennials, the other overused word, and if you feel that the millennial travel audience is really driving the trends that you're seeing, and then if they are, how focused are those on tech?
I think ish. I think, full disclosure, I am a millennial, but one of the older ones, one of the less obnoxious ones. I think yes and no. I mean, I think that we're still an immature market, so, trends like the blending of business and leisure is back, and that's not millennials driving that. Leisure. It's but that's not millennials, because either they're not traveling yet for business, or they don't have families yet, and thus it's not a priority. That's still driven by Gen X, and that's a huge trend right now. But then you look at kind of getting outside and staying in the local neighborhoods and staying in Airbnbs. I don't know how much of that is driven by millennials, but definitely the focus on food, no question, and the focus on local experiences and one-upping each other. That is definitely driven, I think, by millennials. But that's not to say that other generations aren't part of it. But I think we've maybe a bit of a bigger role in that sense. And then I think in terms of tech, it's having everything at the touch of a thumb. It's like I want everything in one place, right? I still do everything on paper. I still have all my itineraries on paper because Canadian phone plans really suck and you can never get data. But I think just being able to do everything and get everything in one place and having apps that can do that, there's nobody quite there yet. And it'll be interesting to see when somebody cracks it, what it'll do, because you can't right now do everything in terms of trip planning in one go, in one app. It's still fragmented. So there's an opportunity. And I think it'll be millennials that tap into that, but we'll see.
I don't know. I work with clients of all ages, and I think everyone's sort of scared of millennials. Like, oh, what will millennials bring? What will they do for the next 20 years? I'm 38, so I think I'm past the millennial stage, thank goodness. But all of the young clients I have in their 20s, it's really interesting because I didn't get on my first plane until I was 18. But I think millennials, travel is just part of something you do every day. You travel with your families, your vacations. It's not a hard thing to do anymore. It's very easy. So people in their early 20s have traveled. They've already been on safari. They've already been all over Europe. For their honeymoons, they don't want to go to Greece or Italy because they've already done that 14 times on spring break with their parents. So I think it's sort of bringing them, I find they're not used to service. All of the millennials, people in their 20s, are used to everything is do it yourself. And then they talk to somebody and they're like, wow, you know what you're doing. You actually can recommend something firsthand. If something goes wrong, I can pick up the phone and call you. I find that millennials don't really understand service.
We
So when
don't
you
like the
provide service
phone.
to them, I don't know, sometimes you're just quick and easier, but that's what I find too, though, is that they're surprised by service. Because they're not used to it, so I'll do it yourself in travel.
Full disclosure, I'm not a millennial. I was one 15 years ago. Has anyone seen the movie While We Were Young with Ben Stiller? Brilliant movie. It's exactly about this topic. It's about these millennials that are completely different than you think, and there's people my age who try to be millennials and social media and everything, while the younger people actually listen to records and read books instead of watching TV, leave their phones off and don't do social media or off Facebook and all of these things. It's fascinating. You should see the movie. There's actually a scene that was shot right out here, 2 blocks from here. Anyway, millennials, I think it's dangerous that we look at this one group of millennials. I mean, I think it's fascinating that you have millennial clients. So people in their 20s use travel advisors to book travels. And I read numbers that this number is actually increasing. That, and at the same time, you probably have millennials who say, well, how is this still a thing? A travel agent, this is still around? Does this still work? So I think it's as diverse as the group of people in my age, whatever generation X or whatever I am or Y or anything, it's hard to look at them as one group. And the interesting thing is, I believe that some of the trends are coming back, some of these counter trends, like for example with travel advisors. I mean, I personally in our work, we believe strongly in travel advisors. We see how especially in the upper part of the market, how travel advisors can do really, really well, and how the business is growing, how the market is growing. So it's interesting to see how millennials kind of follow these counter trends, if you will, at the same time as probably other millennials do what we expect millennials to do. So interesting observation.
We like paper, we don't like phones. Is that, I don't, it's a,
Definitely do not like phones. If I can avoid a phone call, I will.
Yeah, that reminds me of a friend I have who recently was headed to a hotel in San Francisco, and they texted her, or they texted her to tell her to text them when she got there. So is that a hotel that's staying on top of the texting trend? Like, how much do destinations need to think about exactly how travelers, want to communicate?
Everybody's different though. Like, I wouldn't like that because I would get charged for that text. And I know it's probably only 10 cents. No, it's probably like $1. But,
roaming.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't want that. I turn my phone off when I go to other countries because it's so expensive. So everybody's different. That's the challenge. Like, even as a millennial, like, I'm 30, so I'm 4 years into the millennial trend. So I'm not in my 20s anymore, and I don't want the same thing as a 22-year-old, right? But I'm technically a millennial. I think I don't know, it's just, I guess it's about like maybe giving people, demonstrating what you do and giving people that choice so that they are aware, this is what we do, this is the type of hotel we are, this is the type of country we are, this is our brand, and just kind of being really clear with your messaging and then kind of giving people that opportunity to make that choice for themselves.
The approach that we take as a destination to market the destination is that we look less at these millennial, generational, etc. Categories, but we look more into segments. So what are people interested in? Like active travel, for example. And then that's the segment we work with. And so we partner then with organizations like the Adventure Travel Trade Association, for example, and then we have the partnership and try to reach all kinds of generations and different, probably, there's millennials in there, there's other groups in there. Or we have a partnership here now with City Bike. And City Bike reaches probably quite a number of millennials in this city, but also older people and all kinds of people. So once again, but it's all people that are interested in using a bike for commuting or maybe on a weekend to enjoy the city. So we're trying to solve this challenge with that they're all different, and the 20-year-olds are different than the 32-year-olds by focusing more on certain segments of interest and experiences that people enjoy instead of these generational groups.
Rigid, age-defined group.
Exactly.
Great. I would like to say that we're very open to questions. So if anyone has a question or would like to think about asking one, feel free to raise your hand at any time. I did want to ask the panelists, who's getting an Apple Watch next week? No one?
I will keep my Swiss watch forever.
That's a good answer right there.
I have a, well, A, I have a Samsung, and B, I've got a Swiss watch as well, so I'm all right too. I'm good to go.
I don't like wearing a watch, and I still remember Knight Rider, so unless I can call my car to come get me, then I see no point.
You can take calls on it. I saw
No,
someone take a call on it last week, and it freaked me out.
CIA walking around.
Yeah, it was very Dick Tracy.
Hi, my name is Deirdre Campbell, and I'm from Tartan Group. And I just had a question because a lot of our clients are very, experienced, hands-on experience. They're very remote, and they really struggle with the need to be connected. They can get Wi-Fi now, but it's also that feeling that you go to a beautiful lodge, and everyone's got their head down working on their computer. They're not looking at the view. So there's this. But at the same time, in order to get the millennials, we're hearing they still need to be connected. So I just wondered about your feeling on that, because there is that sort of tension between getting away from it all, the trend on no tech holidays, to I still need to be connected because I'm so
I can't
busy.
check my email.
Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur, I need to be connected, and so I just love your thoughts on that.
We're always working. I think that's the real problem. Even when you're on vacation, you're working. I own my own business, so from the minute I get up in the morning to the minute I go to bed, I'm checking my email in case a client needs me or if I can jump in. So I think that's the main issue, is you need to be connected to work and what's going on there, and if I need to jump in. It's great. There's a wonderful resort in St. John called Canil Bay, and they don't have televisions, and they only have Wi-Fi around their resort. But you need to really know that, because if you book someone there and there's no TV, they're going to get very mad at you. But it is, I don't know, I sort of struggle with that too. I try not to look at email when I travel, but I will take a photo and put it on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and let everyone else know what I'm doing. So it's trying to find the balance, and I'm not sure if there's a perfect answer for your question. Everyone's different.
Hi. Personally, I think it depends on what the property is and kind of what people are going there for. If I'm in a city, I want Wi-Fi, because 9 times out of 10, I haven't really planned what I'm doing, or I want to see what's up 20 minutes from now, and that connectivity I think is important. Less so for me to do work, because I do try to really switch off when I go away. But if I'm going out to a wilderness lodge, or if I'm going to a destination that I'm deliberately going to relax, it's not the end of the world, because I don't need that. If you're going to chill, you're going to chill. And if you don't need to be compulsively planning or figuring out where to go or getting reservations, I don't think it's the end of the world. But I think Eric's right. You have to have that transparency and just be upfront about, hey, this is who we are. This is the experience we offer. It's amazing, but you have to be ready for it. And that's always the frustrating thing that I find, is if I can't figure out if there's Wi-Fi. It's I don't care if there isn't, just tell me. Because everybody has a different purpose. I think it's just that clarity I think is important.
Well, there used to be a time when in the hotels you had smoking and non-smoking rooms. So if you needed another proof that I'm not a millennial, I remember that very well. So why shouldn't you as a hotelier have wireless and non-wireless rooms maybe? And then you have a choice. Either you want to be online or not. You want to be tempted to be online or not. But I think here we talked about counter trends earlier, and I've been to this restaurant in LA a few weeks ago, and they had a big sign in there which said, "No, there's no wireless. Talk to each other." So you can actually position yourself and find a certain segment of people who are like you, who don't want to be connected. In emergency, you can always receive a text or something, and then you can call or someone. So it's not about being completely away from it all. But I think there is a segment out there in the market that if you do it right, I think you can position yourself and be successful with that.
I'm on airplane mode right now, and I'm a little nervous, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that connectivity is going to become more normal as the tech increases. So it may just be a matter of everyone figuring out how connected they want to be and adjusting that behavior.
Hi, my name's Cindy Ladopoulos. Thank you. This is very helpful. My question is, I'm a tour manager and tour guide, and because I speak a few languages, I get people from different parts of the world. I understand millennials versus non-millennials, used to service, not used to service. Are there some areas of the world, in your opinion, where people expect more service, let's say?
I don't know if it's necessarily parts of the world. If I'm going to a Four Seasons and they don't open the door for me, I'd be a little ticked off. I think it just depends on someone's budget and service too. I think in a service industry, there should always be service. And when I have bad service, it makes me crazy. Whether it's at a restaurant or even a taxi driver who's on their phone the entire ride. It's just bad service. You wouldn't do that. That's not the way I was taught. You know, if you're paying for a service, you get that person's attention for the entire time. I can't, maybe as a destination specialist you could, but I can't think of a spot where there's better service than others necessarily.
Well, it's a good question. I guess what a lot of people are, or maybe one of the reasons why you ask this question is people expect service, but are they also willing to pay for the service? Because I guess that's, well, I guess that's, okay. Which makes the question a little bit different.
Yes.
I mean, so when I moved to this country here, I was impressed by the quality of service usually, and initially I thought that's the tipping model. You know, if you get the tip, if you connect that to the tip, of course the service is better in general. I've been here for almost 12 years now, and I have a little bit of a different opinion now. I don't know whether there's parts of the world where service is better or not. It's maybe there's more of a tradition of service. I mean, I'm happy to be from a country where hospitality was invented. Cesar Ritz had the first, was kind of the inventor of the modern luxury hotel, and he's Swiss. He was Swiss. So we have a very strong tradition of hospitality, and it's just something that is part of the fabric of the experience. I guess in more emerging countries, that's a little bit of a different experience. But I mean, even there, I guess you can find great service everywhere, but you have to be ready to also pay for it.
Got one.
I would probably have to agree with both of them. I think North Americans in general probably expect service more so than other cultures, just because we are that service culture. But I don't really think it's anything that's like cut and dry or particularly defined. Yeah, I just, sometimes, you know, you go places and you're like, wait, why aren't they bringing me a menu? And it's like, oh, you have to go up to the bar. You know, we're very used to being kind of catered to and given things here, and you don't get that in other places.
I've been to one place where there was no service, and that was Cuba. But this will change as well now, probably.
Hi, my name is Ron. I'm a professor of hospitality and tourism management at Fairleigh Dickinson University, and my students go to Switzerland every spring break, but my question is personal. I'm generation old. No, I don't feel old, but I'm almost 80. And so I need to know, since I use a cane because of a new knee, I would like to know before I do anything, and I travel a lot, whether or not there's a problem with the streets, with the hills, that kind of thing. And I think that there should be some way of saying, not that you're old, but just say there's a lot of walking, or there are public transportation options.
First of all, I'm amazed that your students spend their spring break in Switzerland. So maybe you should start a new campaign, spring break in Switzerland, you know, safe and, you know, healthy, and not your Florida beach spring break or Texas beach spring break. I'm not 100% sure whether I got your question. I think that's a very, very good point. You know, I mean, the average travel to Switzerland is generation old, so welcome. We are very used to that, and this information to be very, you know, to just don't assume that people are okay with carrying their suitcases up 3 stairs into the train and then, you know, carrying them out again and things like that. We're very sensitive to that, and I see a lot of destinations who are, because I mean the average traveler, and especially the people who travel for longer periods of time and bring their entire families and also that spend more money are the older generations and are the people in their 60s from this country, and you know that's the people who can travel for 3 weeks and you know stay in the 4 or 5 star properties and eat at the best places. So it's actually a very, very important and attractive segment of the market. So us destinations, we better take care of this generation and make sure that we inform comprehensively and make sure we have services available for for this group of travelers.
I was going to say, I think we're starting to see it a lot more, to see people being transparent and being clear about accessibility. For instance, with our company, on our site, we have a culture shock rating and a physicality rating. So low, medium, high for every single tour. And then we have a little key that kind of says what low means, what medium means, and what high means. Yeah, so you have an idea of what it's going to entail. And we try and be as detailed as possible when we're presenting itineraries so that we can manage expectations. And we're actually right now at a point of just finally defining which ones of our tours are fully wheelchair accessible, so as in completely step-free, and then which ones are quote-unquote stroller accessible, which may have a couple steps, but obviously are not appropriate for a wheelchair user. So we're in the process of making that extremely clear, and I think you are starting to see a lot more organizations do it, but I think you're absolutely right, it's integral, especially as, you know, I'm going to sound so rude saying generation old, even though you said it. But as you know, the older generation is traveling so much more than ever before, and so it's that much more important. And I don't know if there will ever be an industry standard per se. Maybe that's on its way, but if you look, there are organizations that are really focused on that and really aware of that. Yes. Yeah. Definitely, yeah. Yeah, we definitely make that really clear because the last thing you want is to get on a tour and it be like 2 miles of walking and you're just like, I did not sign up for this. I'm not in the right shoes, or this isn't appropriate.
I actually, last year, I had a client, 81-year-old gentleman who was taking his 80-year-old wife on a surprise trip to Rome for her birthday. And he said, Eric, you know, my wife is very headstrong and wouldn't want to know that I'm really planning this out so detailed, but I had to, when I picked the hotel, I literally had to call the hotel and said, do you have any steps? And then how many footsteps is it from the door to the front desk, from the front desk to the elevator? And then making sure that I got them a room that was right by the elevator. Most people want to be away from the elevator, but this couple, I had to make sure they were right by the elevator. And cobblestone is all over Rome, so that was also fun. And she didn't have a cane, she didn't want a wheelchair, but she got tired very easily. So one of the challenges for me too, I had to find a guide that could do a tour of the Sistine Chapel. And I found the most perfect guide who I told the situation, and he said, Eric, I got you. He planned this thing where he knew every bench that was in the Vatican and Sistine Chapel. So they would walk, then he would start speaking, and she would sit down. She had no clue, and I got the nicest email when I got back saying that this was, you know, a wonderful trip, and he looked like a star for planning this, and she had no clue that we did all of these things behind the scenes to make her comfortable. But it was a challenge for me because it was one of the first times I did something so specific. So I feel you.
We got one more question, just a reminder, we got 10 minutes left, so if you want to go to the next session, we have sessions going on upstairs. You won't be considered rude, but we have more time for more questions. We'll go for about 10 more minutes.
Hi, Matt Levy. I run the Levy's Unique New York. We do custom design private boutique tours of New York City. And most of our client base are boomers, and they want their hands held in creating these custom itineraries. And as I'm wondering is, as the boomer market ages out, and as the millennial market ages in to travel, there seems to be an inherent contradiction in which the millennials want their tour experiences customized, but they also want them automated with apps and digital and sharing and everything. So how do you see that contradiction playing out in the personalized tour and travel market?
I don't think it's a contradiction. I think you have to sort of merge the two. Like, for instance, I run a traditional travel agency, so it's mostly by phone and by email. However, I use an internet booking tool to sort of enhance the experience. So I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's a matter of trying to find and create the experience where you have the best of both worlds, where you have the hand-holding, you have an app, but then you have someone who doesn't want to use their data, who doesn't want to do things. So it's really, you really have to know your client, and I think it's a challenge, not a challenge, but I think it's sort of a fun challenge, if you would, to sort of figure out how to merge everything where it's not, a trend or counter-trend or contradictory. It's just a matter of merging it together. That's a great question.
Yeah, I think, for us, it's, in my opinion, there's no substitute for an actual tour with an actual person. I don't really want to do a tour that's like an audio tour by myself wandering around, because you just don't get it, right? Like, it just, you just don't get it. But so what we do is we do exactly that. We enhance our tours with an app. So we have a destination, we have a city app for New York, and we have it for 17 other cities. It's free. You can use it offline. And it's just a collection of like 40 of our favorite places in the city. So, it's like after you've done your tour or before you've done your tour, use the app, and it's kind of an extension of what we do. So we give them that tech. We've got that tech available to anybody, but we don't replace that actual experience, because in my opinion, there's no replacement for it. So I think it's just kind of covering the ground and appealing to everybody, and also not forgetting the Gen X guys as well, because they're no, but I actually think that Gen X in many ways are probably the generation we should be focusing on right now, because they are tech savvy and they have more money than millennials, and they're a more mature market. So I think kind of covering the bases and appealing to everybody, and I think you will get that. You will cover that ground.
I see the next panelists are coming in, but we can keep going, conversation going for a little bit. Maybe you guys want to share what surprised you from your fellow panelists for this as a way of wrapping up. What did you not know before you came in that you learned from your fellow panelists and from the audience?
Well, the barn and the hay and all of that. I'm
milk bath.
Doing that.
Milk bath.
Can I invite you to Switzerland to
Yes,
experience this?
Yes, I think that was great. And learning about what you do too. I really think this was travel trends, but I think that what we can take away from this is that travel trends is sort of somehow merging and bringing together old-fashioned service, new technology, using wonderful websites like Mashable as well to sort of get information about technology, about travel, just so much. It's not just the internet and Expedia or nothing else. It's really about, there's room for everyone.
Absolutely, and it's really just kind of paying attention to the audience and kind of not necessarily letting them dictate what's happening, but listening, seeing where people are, seeing what they're doing, seeing what's important to them, what they value, and then helping kind of create those experiences, or at least make those experiences accessible, I think is probably the biggest trend, I guess, which is very vague.
I appreciated the fact that we talked a lot about customers or different segments of customers out there, but also a lot about the experiences. And I mean, after all, technology is extremely important, but it's just technology, and it needs the content, and it needs to come alive first. And that's still important. And that's also what the last gentleman's question about these tours. I mean, it's still about what you learn on this tour. And I think the question then, how exactly you learn that, whether you have a headphone on or an app or something, if the content is right and if if it's targeted to the right customer, with regards to the experience, it's successful. And technology is just technology, and it's just copper and iron and plastic, and it's basically just it has to come alive.
Absolutely. Well, I wanted to thank the panelists. This was really a great conversation.
Thank you so much.
And I'm sure that we'll all be around to continue as the conference continues. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.